So this is a video I would usually upload to my Instagram because there I tend to post just like talking and things that I have on my mind. But I thought, you know what, let me make this into a video for YouTube. So here we are. I am currently in the desert in Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas, kind of in between Las Vegas and Death Valley. And I've been here for the past 2 days, so I've spent 2 nights here on this land, out in the middle of nowhere by myself, which I have really enjoyed. But I woke up this morning and I can see people that way and that way. So to me, that's a sign that I should probably leave. It's not even the weekend yet. So yeah, now I'm thinking, like, where am I going to go next? I have a package from FedEx and like I should go home, but it's like 14 hours away, whereas Death Valley is an hour and a half away. And the pool that I found, I pretty much was going to Death Valley for this pool that I found. Swimming and pools are my flow state and my happy place. But because I don't like the chlorine to damage my skin and my hair, because I have sensitive skin and hair. So I'm always trying to find a saltwater pool, and those are a lot harder to find. And I found one. I found a hot spring pool in Death Valley. So I was like, I need to go there. So that might be what I get up to today. I'm nervous to enter California. There's like a warning that came up on Google about how, basically it didn't say this, but what it essentially said was that there's medical discrimination happening in California in public places. So yeah, I don't know if I could face that right now. I just feel so emotionally fragile. But strangely, I feel also very emotionally strong from putting down some of the things that I've been carrying. I've been having a lot of emotions and grief processing through me on this trip, things that I've been running from my whole life. And you know that you should probably look deeper into something if the idea of it repels you, like the inner child work. And like, I'm talking to my inner child when I was 6 years old, and I'm telling her I'm here for her and stuff like that. Like, it just makes me recoil. I'm just like, oh God, this is so bleh, That's how I usually kind of felt about it. But I'm like, I know I need to do it. But the thing I'm starting to find about some of these spiritual processes is if you just wait and you keep doing the little things along the way, like journaling or practicing self-awareness, that they will come to you in time. You don't have to seek someone out or go do drugs in the desert or like buy a course or something. If you're on that path and you're taking steps toward it, the information and knowledge will come to you. And that's kind of what has happened for me over the past week. I've been getting messages from my inner child, and I've been connecting with that side of myself that is still hurt and left behind, and that is been causing problems in my adult life. There's 2 main things. I think there's a third is that I kind of stand out to me. One was, I don't know if this was yesterday. This was the day before when I was out here by myself. And one of the steps in Codependence Anonymous is making amends and admitting where you've been wrong. And so I'm doing that. And then there's also an aspect where it's like, okay, now you have to admit, you have to make amends to yourself. Do you need to make amends to yourself? And write, apologies to yourself. And as I started doing that, it really hit me that the apologies I was writing out were the apologies that I would have wanted from my parents and I never got. And I never will get. But I realized that I had taken on to do to myself what they had done to me, which is what we all do. But it was really weird how I go around, on YouTube or whatever, I'd tell people, I would make my mom would take it, or I wanted to volunteer, and she would, because I was trying to set myself up for college, and she was like, you can't go. Like, she would just hold me back from things for no reason. And how I have that problem now, which is procrastination. I sit down to write and I'll just go blank, or I film videos and I don't post them. So I had to write down, I'm sorry for holding you back from being successful and preventing you from doing the things you love. I had to write that to myself. And that was pretty crazy. I said, I'm sorry for criticizing you, for saying I hated you, for, just all these horrible things that if you look and think if you treated a person like this, they would be gone out of your life. But we cannot, and this is something that I tell my coaching clients, and that is the only person you can love unconditionally is yourself, because you will never escape yourself in this life. And the path to escaping oneself is where all pain comes from, essentially. There's a young quote that says, the basis of all neurosis is the avoidance of legitimized suffering. And that just really stood out to me as being so insightful. And then I had another moment. Oh, and yeah, when I was reading back over that, I was just cried, just a wail from the depth of my soul came out, and I was like, whoa, it startled me, It was like the apology that I was actually always waiting for. I thought it was from, an in-law, or from an ex, or from my significant other, or from my siblings, or from my parents, but the one I was really waiting for was me. And that really hit me. Because the thing is, ultimately, if I'm not abandoning, ignoring myself, making myself do things I don't want to do, be involved with people I don't want to be involved with, then those people can't hurt me to begin with. Which doesn't let them off the hook, per se, for their behavior, but it's, yeah. So, and I guess the second thing that happened was I was eating. And now with eating, when I was in high school, I started developing this tic where I would put food in my mouth and I would eat like this. I would cover my mouth. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd be talking to friends, and I would eat, and then chew like that. Can you imagine that? Every time. And I don't 100% know where that came from. My brother used to make fun of me about my teeth. I had a friend whose stepdad used to criticize her for eating, every little aspect of how she swallowed and how her lips moved and stuff like that. And I saw that and I just felt really bad about it. But also I always felt kind of insecure about my overbite. When I was a kid, all of my friends got braces, and the dentist recommended it for me as well. My mother's like, you don't need it, right? Of course. We wouldn't have been able to afford it, but I'm sure there would have been some way we could have figured it out through some kind of programs or something, but To my mother, my future didn't matter. Thinking about things that would be of benefit to me down the line, it didn't matter. And of course, this is a mentality that I took on later in life. So anyway, for a long time, I was really insecure about eating and the way like my teeth looked. And like I can still kind of be that way. I went to a meetup in Salt Lake City a week ago. I think it was about a week ago, last weekend. And I had such a blast talking to the people there and making a new friend or two. And they were like on my level, you know. We were talking about psychology and spirituality and morality and all kinds of interesting things. And they were just, I could tell, you know, they really liked me. And they told me after, like, I never had a conversation like that in a long time. I really appreciated it. Like, you're so awesome. Like, let us know when you're coming back through. Got some messages and stuff. And after, and by the way, I don't drink. I don't drink because I don't drink, and I don't do drugs because people tend to assume I'm already on them. Like, I don't need it, you know. If people meet me, this used to happen. They're like, "Are you high?" And I'm like, "No, this is just how I am." Or if I'm like in a group and I'm like socializing for the first time in a long time, I get really excited. I could be really talkative and friendly. People might think I'm drunk. Like, I had such a great time. I was laughing, and you know, we're all sitting close together and talking, and nobody was scared of the cooties. And I hadn't been to a bar in like a decade, and I wasn't even nervous really going in. I was like a little bit nervous, but not really. And I was like, wow, I have good confidence, you know, and I can talk to people and they like me, and I'm popular and I'm pretty, and like, you know, all these things. And then after I left, I started feeling shame come over me, thinking that while I was laughing and talking to them, that there were people who were probably like, oh, look at her teeth, or just like, or that I looked ungraceful in my laughing or my legitimate expression of talking and enjoying myself. And I think that's probably what brought up that thing about my teeth again. So, long story short, I was eating in the van by myself, nobody around for miles, and that mean voice kind of came in. It was like, and you know, it's not even a voice, it's like a feeling of shame where I know what I've done wrong, almost as if someone has looked at me with disdain. That's the feeling. It's not an actual voice with words. And so here I was like eating, and then I felt that feeling like, oh, look at your teeth while you're eating. But the thing was, I think, like, before I would just, I didn't notice it. I just identified with it. I didn't think anything of it. It was just like a normal experience for me, right? Because most of us have thoughts and experiences that run through our head all the time, right? We don't really stop and think, but it hit me like, oh my God. And then I just realized that it was the, I don't want to cry, but I had a really good cry over it, but it was the organism of my body. It was this thing that has kept me alive, that has fought and been through so much, you know. Part of the reason why I love swimming pools and why I go into my flow state and my happy place is because I drowned in a pool when I was 4 years old, dead, floating on the bottom. Someone saw me, they pulled me out, no breathing. My heart had stopped, and a lifeguard got me going back again, beating on my chest, doing CPR. And after that, I became obsessed with being a good swimmer. I said, that will never happen to me again. And I just never had a fear of the water. And I had some angels come into my life in the form of teachers, just really sweet, calming, kind, relaxing teacher. And I remember that was one of the most touching moments of my life. Was I'm gonna see if I have Kleenex. I was learning to float in the pool. Here I was, this poor kid in a hand-me-down bathing suit that didn't really fit properly, taking these lessons. It was probably on a charity program, I don't know. And the teacher was this, I don't know, they always have young people teaching these things. This girl must have been 18 or 19 years old, and she was teaching me how to float. And here was this wiry kid with this afro and these big Coke bottle glasses, no father, getting abused and parentified and smoked out at home. But there I was, showing up for myself, trying to learn in the midst of it all, you know. I really wonder about that spirit in me. These days when I just feel like everything is so difficult and I often feel like giving up. I never felt like that as a kid. And at 9 years old, I had a really horrible experience where I was like completely weak. I hadn't eaten in months. I was suffering basically the result of having a body that's adrenalizing and in fight or flight mode 24/7 by living around my mother. It'd basically be like if you had a vehicle and you were driving it with the pedal to the metal the entire time and also stepping on the brakes. What would happen to the engine? That's essentially what was happening to my body and my nervous system. Because it's like you're in a room with a tiger, but you can't fight because it's your mom. You can't leave. You can't flee because you're a kid and you have nowhere to go to. You know, you can't fawn because that'll make her angry too. It was just like a horrible experience, and it makes people physically sick. And you know, a sensitive kid, sensitive person, and I just got really sick. And I had this moment where you know, she'd just been mean to me like she normally was. We were all supposed to go to some event, some family day thing or something at a park that was kind of far away, and I was running behind. I had a lot of problems with executive functioning. I still do, which is very common for abused children. I always felt overwhelmed. I didn't have a sense of you know, that things were going to be okay and that I had a handle on things and that I had support. I was always you know, just like my mom was. And so I got left behind, which also happened a lot. And she's like, just hurry up, and you know, you're gonna have to go there by yourself or something. And so I was trying to figure out what to do. I didn't have much energy again because I was sick and not eating. And I can't remember how this happened, but I went to the fridge and there was a bottle of cod liver oil. My mother was trying to get me to take this cod liver oil because she's really into health alternatives and stuff like that. And surprisingly, cod liver oil is still something that really works really well for my body today. So that was, I guess, a blessing. But I remember trying to pour it and it spilled. And I tried to grab it and it had cod liver oil on the outside. So it dropped and then it spilled on the ground. And then I went to go and clean it up and I slipped. And then I was trying to get up off the ground, so now I had cod liver oil on my legs, on my feet, on my hands. And so I just immediately tried to get up and fell again really hard. And I was so skinny and bony, it hurt so badly, and I was so weak. I actually could not get up off the ground. I talked about this, how I would crawl upstairs, and I would never sit on the ground because I knew I didn't have the strength to get back up. Anyway, so I just remember collapsing in this cod liver oil mess on the ground that I could not escape from, and just bawling, and in this empty house, all by myself. And it never occurred to me back then that it'd be great to have someone there to help me, right? That's not something that I had an experience of often as a child, or ever, to be honest. But suddenly this calm kind of came over me after I had just finished bawling, and I was just like lying there cold and covered in this nasty oil. And I just had this clarity, this vision, and I said, if I stay down here, I'm not going to get back up emotionally. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, I was thinking, okay, I'm just going to lie down here and go to sleep until someone finds me. But I just had this feeling like, no. And I dragged myself into the dining room where there was carpet, so I was able to get purchase and stand up. And just like I had when I had drowned, I stood there and I said to myself, every single time I fall, I will always get back up. I will never stay down ever again. From this moment, this is the point where I will never stay down. And I very carefully crept there and I cleaned it up the best I could, because I knew I was going to catch hell for it, because as you know, children cannot make mistakes ever, or they're demons from hell who deserve punishing. Yeah, I did that, and I just felt completely calm and just like totally raw and exhausted from the crying, but just like, no, and I think that moment was where a lot of my strength came from, spiritually, and also partially just the ability to turn off accepting help from anyone or expecting anyone to ever come, which has been obviously beneficial in a life like mine. But like all mechanisms we develop to cope as children, it becomes a problem later in your life when you can't accept help, or when you completely feel alone. So I wrote about that in my book on Amazon, Recollections, A Journey Through Therapy and Recovery, about how I started realizing I was that way once when like a very kind older lady came to kind of help me with my groceries once in a save-on after I, the grocery store, after I was having like a touchy day, and she kind of came out of nowhere and I just said, leave me alone, before I even realized it. It's like this wolf that exists inside me that will rear up, the lone wolf. I used to watch that TV show, The Littlest Hobo, as a kid. Like, I wasn't allowed to watch TV, which I am insanely grateful for. But there were a few things I could watch, like Mr. Rogers and The Littlest Hobo, and I used to watch that Littlest Hobo, and I didn't know it back then. It just really connected with me, and I felt really sad. I used to cry for the little dog because he was a dog all on his own, and he would go from town to town, and he would help people and help solve mysteries. And then they would go, wow, that dog was so good, he helped us. I'm like, let's give him a bone. Where did he go? And then the music would start, and you would see the dog. He was always... already running off to help the next set of people by himself. And I realized as an adult that I just feel like that's kind of my destiny. And it just seems really sad. Sorry for all the sniffing to the mic. In my mind, I'm like, I'll just edit this out. And as soon as I had that thought, I'm like, nope, they're not editing it. Just leave it. It will help somebody. But yeah, look at The Littlest Hobo on YouTube and see if you can watch some clips from that. wholesome ass movie that made me sad. My little CPTSD self that I wasn't even aware of. So yeah, I had I tried to connect the dots back to our original thought, but I think it might have been about the eating. I realized I was being critical of myself eating and my organism trying to keep me alive by eating the best way it knew how, and here I was criticizing it, a side of me or something that I was allowing to criticize my teeth. Here's my teeth. See? They what they look like. This is what my bite looks like. This is what my smile looks like. Here's my little buck teeth. Have a look. I love my damn teeth. They have helped me in this life, but now I just realize how cruel I'd been to myself, and in that moment I also kind of realized that because I've seen my body from the outside and my near-death experiences, like when I've been dead, I was able to kind of see my body as like this organism, like a horse getting me through the desert, and my spirit or my consciousness or whatever you want to call it is like the rider is in the driver's seat of this organism that you see. And so I feel pity for this organism, gratitude, kind of like you would through a horse that is just getting driven through the desert to help you get where you're going. And then I realized also when I was eating and I had that thought that when I binge eat, that I'm force feeding this organism things that'll make it sick. And that's so cruel and so abusive and just so mean. It reminded me of that scene of the orphanage in, I think it was Romania, that they got this footage from. The workers are just so cruel to the children, these orphans. And there's this one scene where they're like feeding the kid and they have like no compassion or no empathy for this poor kid. They're going too fast. You can see they're just shoveling this food in the kid's mouth and the kid is just accepting it. People noticed that the documentary, I think it's like 2 hours long, and people commented on it in the comments too, like, why do you gotta feed the kid like that? It's just so mean. And I think that's what it must look like to my inner self when I binge eat. And I had that realization at the same time. I had the realization about the teeth. Oh man, I've had so many crazy things. I had a crazy dream about my mom, like a dream that had a really obvious message for me. I'll probably talk about that in another video. I'm getting a little tired and the sun is really starting to come out here now, just the way I wanted it to. I'm so grateful for this sun. I just want it all over. It feels like such a blessing to have sun with this strength in November when you're from Canada. Oh, it's so beautiful. So I'm really grateful for this space that has hosted me in the desert to do my work for the past 2 days on myself and on my creative projects, which I am allowing myself to do. I'm not holding myself back anymore, even if it's slowly, one step at a time. I had the most beautiful yoga practice yesterday morning and went for a nice walk. I think I'll probably go for a walk here again. Yeah, I'll go for a walk here before I leave. And just a lot is changing for me right now. I'm expanding, an inner expansion and maturity. I've become aware that I have a different voice, a different presence that's been with me for a while now that I'm aware of, that is the opposite of that critical, shaming, scornful look. It is a calm, gentle, disciplined, wise, humorous, loving presence that's really understanding and caring. And that's the side of myself I choose to cultivate. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I love coming on here and sharing something that is meaningful to me that might help someone somewhere. I think it's perfectly healthy and essential that if you're working with a coach, you're working with someone who is actively working on themselves, not just sitting behind a desk with something up on the wall and taking in your money and telling you things. Meanwhile, their life is a complete mess, you know. They have a lot of blind spots and bad relationships. They're not working on themselves. I think there's a lot of awesome people out here talking about their own process. Richard Grannon, I love that he's been talking about his process and that he's back in therapy too. That's awesome. I guess I hope that it takes the stigma out of this kind of work. I think what people in the past have been looking for, or have, myself included, have been looking for, is someone who's like, I have all the answers, look at me. Or I'm coming from a place where I can tell you how to do everything because I have it all figured out. And then, of course, you always find out the second you take the tiniest peek behind the curtain, you're like, whoa, you know? I remember going to see these like experts in their field in their 70s, 80s, with so much wisdom and depth and beauty and intelligence, just amazing. And then going there and to the seminar and catching them in, you know, the room on the lunch break, like bitching at their husband or wife on the phone, or like, you know, I've seen therapists, I've seen women in their 50s and 60s throw tantrums over the most minute things. So I think part of that maturity is realizing that all-knowing self that we're looking for out in the world is actually our spiritual connection inside. It's not going to be a human being out there. It's going to be your connection with God, your higher self. That's what that authority is going to be. It's not going to be your parent. It's not going to be your boss. It's not going to be the YouTube guru on the mountain. None of that. So anyway, I'm going to close that out today. Thank you for watching. Please leave whatever this brought up for you in the comments, your stories, anything, emojis, just to show that you were here. I'm going to give you a shot of the beautiful scenery, and that'll be it for me.